Okay, hi everybody. Jack from Phantasma Paranormal Investigators back here again. And since this is the second episode, before I had Berkshire Paranormal on here, and I got a very interesting guest on today, which is Nico, just over here, just on my right, but your left. So, uh, so Nico, thank you so much for joining me this morning. I appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting me.
So, what time is it over there where you are?
11. It's 11.
11 o'clock. I must admit, I was the last hour when I woke up this morning. I was crapping myself. I was so nervous to have you on. I was so nervous. Like, oh my god, I had all these questions. Now I don't know what to ask him. So I
Feel
had to
free
write
to
down
ask anything.
Well, first of all, Nico, you've been given the name for quite a while, which is the Vampire of Paris. So why that nickname? For those of us who are watching later on who don't really know the story of the Vampire of Paris.
Yeah, I was arrested in 1994 for homicide. And when I was in custody, there was an investigation, and they raided my apartment, and they found several evidence that led them to think that there was grave robberies and that I was stealing blood bags from the hospital where I worked, because I worked in a hospital, in a surgery unit, and then in the morgue. So they found blood bags in the fridge, as well as several skeletal remains, things that I had found in graveyards, because I used to go to graveyards a lot, and hence the name Vampire of Paris by the tabloids when they reported the case. So yeah, that's how it came to be like that, and they used the name a lot. So yeah, what's in the name?
Yeah. As you go on from there, so everything which happened back then, such as going into like the mausoleums and so on, was it kind of just was it more like just the curiosity of what you were doing at the time, or was there a spiritual motive as well? Was that where the spirituality came in around about the same time?
I was about 16 when I first started to go to graveyards, and it was a a progression. First, I just walked there, and I would bring books, and I would sit in the alleys, read books, etc. The graveyards in Paris are really beautiful. There's a huge graveyard called the Père Lachaise Cemetery. That's where Jim Morrison is, and several other artists. It's really well known because of the gothic atmosphere. And so, yeah, at first it was quite innocent. It was only about, hanging around like some kids do. Then I started to get interested in how the mausoleums were. So there were like little windows on the above ground where I could see inside of the crypt from the outside. And I really wondered how you could have access to them. So I started to study the locks of the doors, and I started to study lockpicking.
Yeah.
And one thing led to another, and 1 year after starting to visit the graveyards, I started to visit the crypts. And after being there, I felt like I was getting closer and closer to death, physical death, and that had been something that I had wanted to explore for quite a while when I was a teenager. I had these I was in a really dark place.
Yeah.
Really dark, and the further I did those things, and the further down I went, and the further darker things went around me. It was getting into a spiral. So yeah, there was a spiritual element too. Spiritual element because it was a time in my life when I was starting to study the occult and satanic worship in particular. It was the late 80s, so I was uh, following the case of the Night Stalker in the US.
Oh, Richard Ramirez.
Yes, exactly. So I was really into not so more the Levian aspect of Satanism, but more like interested in the medieval side of Satanism, black masses, blasphemy, and making pacts with entities. So I strongly believed in that. The more I went in the graveyards and the more I went inside the crypts and the more I felt close to something that I could not describe with words other than Satan. Satan was also, it's an Hebrew word that means adversary.
Yeah.
And I felt that I was getting less and less human in a way by doing all this. So I was also being more and more in the position of an adversary of mankind. There's also the fact that when I was a kid, there was this book in my parents' bedroom that was called "The Devil and All His Works." The Devil and All His Works
Yeah.
by Dennis Wheatley, the author who wrote "The Devil Rides Out."
Yeah.
And inside that book, it was it was full of pictures of medieval woodcuts and engravings and drawings showing the torments of hell. And there was a statue from the Louvre Museum, and it was showing the demon Pazuzu. Demon Pazuzu is the one that you can see at the beginning of The Exorcist. Actually, I have Pazuzu on my which side is it? No, the other side. Yeah. Well, no, that side.
Okay,
Yeah.
I can't tell. Like, it's the sides of different ones. Oh yeah, I see it with just. Is that
Yeah.
depicted with the big wings? I think.
Exactly.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but in a
So
way, if you hadn't have had those experiences, obviously back in the late 80s, do you think like you'd still be still be as spiritual as you are? Like, do you think that those experiences helped to mold your kind of perception of
yeah,
what spirituality and faith is?
exactly. You have to consider that back in the 80s, late 80s, those things weren't really really socially accepted.
No,
They
like
still
taboo
aren't, of course.
subjects.
Yeah, they were way more taboo than now, especially in Catholic countries like France. So, of course, back then there was no internet, and I had to do all my researches by myself, by reading books, by going to occult bookstores. It was a huge thing back in the days. There were actual bookstores specialized in the occult where you can find books. Paris at the time was a place where there was a lot of so-called magicians practicing magic and actually casting spells for money. So they would sometimes go on TV, and you would see on TV talking about how they would cast spells, etc. It was a thing back in the days. It wasn't called Satanism; it was called Luciferianism in France. It was not so much about Satan as an adversary, but Lucifer as the bringer of light.
Yeah.
So there was a few Luciferian cults, in Paris in the late 80s. There was even a case where three of them committed suicide. So it was in the news. And Paris had always been an occult capital in Europe. So there was something there. And I went to the Louvre Museum to actually see the statue of Pazuzu by myself. And I had like some kind of epiphany when I saw it. And I felt really close to that entity. For me, it was the animalistic representation of
Yeah,
what was
yeah, yeah.
inside of me. So yeah, it was definitely an occult experience.
Yeah.
Plus, it was a time also where I was cutting myself, drinking my own blood. So yeah, there was that too, the vampire aspect of it. So yeah, the fact of going to graveyards and the fact of cutting myself, etc. Yeah, it was. I wasn't so much looking for acceptance in the occult community because the occult community was only it was very close circles. So I was a loner and I was doing it for myself. I was not looking to enter a group or a cult or whatever. I just wanted to do all those experiences by myself because, in my mind, Satan represented individuality and
Yeah, for sure.
doing things by yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, because like a close friend of mine, he runs an Instagram page on Instagram, which is called I think it's called the Satanic Temple or the Satanic Templar, and it's kind of exposing the myths behind Satanism. Because before I got into the paranormal, I thought Satanism was all about like sacrificing children, killing animals, all that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
and then I do research and find it's nothing like that
Yeah.
whatsoever. But some
Exactly.
Satanists believe, because he doesn't believe in a literal physical being of Satan. He
Mm.
believes in what Satan represents, which is individuality, not
Individuality.
conforming to anybody's vision of you, and standing up for what you
Exactly.
believe in.
Yeah.
So, like, but is because I'm still learning about Satanism? Is there kind of a few different kinds? You believe in a physical Satan and not? Like, so how does
Yeah.
that kind of work?
There's what they call theistic Satanism,
Yes, yeah.
which is Satan as an entity. There's something that's called in the occult. In the occult, we call it egregores. Egregores is the actual manifestation of a belief.
Okay, yeah.
Allah is an egregore. Jehovah is an egregore. As long as there's many people in the world who believe in one thing, that thing has a representation, astral representation, or
Yeah.
whatever the name. And so I do believe in egregores, and I do believe in the egregore of Satan. So for me, it's not only a spiritual or philosophical concept; it's also a very real entity which I can communicate with. And it's not only one entity, but several aspects of the human mind and several aspects of my mind, which I represent as
Yeah.
entities which I can interact with.
Yeah. So like with that, with I think at the moment, just with where like I've been at, where I've been doing the kind of paranormal thing for the last 3 years or so, and I've learned so much over that time, and also learned how closed-minded a lot of people are in this kind of community. So I
Yeah.
stay out of the communities, do my own
Mm.
thing, whereas
Yeah,
a
it's the
lot of
best.
them they try to just go straight for the like love and light and think it's all angels, it's all roses, it's all pretty, but it's really not. There is a dark to where there's light, there's dark. Whereas me, I don't want to fear that. I would much rather understand it. Because if you
Exactly.
there's a quote from Star Wars which kind of brings it in a bit better perspective for me. Whereas if you're going to understand something, you have to understand everything about that subject. So,
Exactly.
like, would you say that it's much better to have a more rounded understanding than just one narrow-minded pathway?
Exactly. One concept behind the left-hand path is the black flame.
Yeah.
And the black flame is that flame inside you that you nourish through knowledge. And there's nothing more important than knowledge when you're following a spiritual path. And there's nothing more important than nourishing that black flame inside you.
Yeah.
And this is why Lucifer is called the bringer of light. It's the light of the black flame. There's nothing worse than just blindly believing in one single dogma and not even trying to find out other paradigms. For example, I incorporate in my belief system bits and pieces of Shivaism, Santa Muerte, Santeria.
Yeah, actually,
Yeah,
have Santa Moira right here.
exactly. So those are the things. Plus, for me, the only very real entity that I have felt physically around me is death, the Grim Reaper. This is the only spiritual entity which I ever had a connection with.
Right.
And I have felt her presence everywhere I went in my life where I was having having to deal with corpses, or it's something that for me is really real. And if there is a God for me, and if there is an entity, it's death. It's the only one that I in my soul and in my gut I feel is real.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Right.
yeah, there's so many paradigms. There's so many different things. Satanism, I feel a connection to it, of course, but it's more it's less less powerful than my belief in the entity of death. Yeah.
Yeah. Because with Satanism, I personally love what Satanism represents, and there's so many different depictions of
Exactly.
the devil, but it only comes from one side. So with Christianity, is where it's kind of creating a evil image of a being Satan, but it's the same image which they created, which doesn't make much sense to me. So
all religions are about something that is called I can't remember the exact word, but when it's you project human feelings and emotions to something that is by nature not human.
yeah.
For example, people will say that they have a love, that they feel love towards their pets. Of course, they do feel love towards the pets, but as animals, the animals don't feel the same towards their owners. It's a completely different relationship. It's a and people project human emotions in other species or other things that are by nature not human, and it's the same with their gods. The Christians believe in God as a father-like figure who decides the rules and who decides who's bad, who's not, and who basically says what is right or wrong. This is totally human. The Vikings, the Greeks, they each had their own god or goddess for different aspects of the human personality. Love, war, hatred. So it's all about projecting your fears, your basic human concepts in something that by nature or by definition is supposed to be beyond human. So this is why the only if I had to believe in a god, a an entity that has created everything and that will destroy everything, it would be more like a Lovecraftian god,
Yeah,
which has absolutely no emotion and something that is so alien and so different from us humans that it wouldn't mind spreading COVID during 2020. See what I mean?
yeah,
Um, so yeah, humans usually project their own culture and their own background and their own environment into the godlike figures that they believe in. But it's being completely limited in a way, and they never try to seek beyond. And I think it's important not to project your emotions and not to project yourself in concepts that are beyond you. You have to be
yeah,
humble. You have to be humble towards the powers of nature and the this universe that is too big and too complex for us to comprehend and to attach emotions to.
yeah. Well, people always fear what they don't understand.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like going into that, actually, I'm quite glad that it just kind of jogged my memory that you were wearing the shirt that you were wearing. Well, I've got the Zombie Ultimate Warrior on mine, but so like my wife, she gifted me this when we first met, which is the pagan star, and
Okay.
so with this, through the own research which I've done of mine with the I think it's the is it the pentangle, pentagram. I get confused on which is which.
Yeah, pentagram. You can say pentagram.
Okay, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Uh, so like, so I was always told by my friend, by a friend of mine who's sort of converted to Satanism and lives his life in quite a good way. He very much doesn't try to conform to anybody else's rules, always expresses himself the way he wants to express himself, which I love. I love the individuality that comes from Satanism, and I think it's really helped me as well. But with the pentagram, with the obviously with this one, you have earth, fire, water, air, and you have the point facing upwards. But what
Yeah.
does it mean with the point facing downwards? Like with your shirt does.
Pointing it down. The first time you saw that in books was to represent the figure of the goat head.
Right.
Right? The horns here, the ears here, and the beard here. So it was also an inversion of the Eliphas Levi pentagram. Eliphas Levi was a French occultist, and to represent um, the powers below, right? Because the pentagram, the one that points upwards, is an alchemist representation. It represents elevation of the soul towards light.
Right.
That would be the evolution. Well, the pushing the soul down
I
towards
see.
the
Yeah.
earth. Yeah. And releasing what we call chthonic forces. Chthonic, it means forces from the underground, underworld. The It's about inversion. It's about inversion, basically.
Okay. Well, now I know. Finally.
Yeah.
No, thanks for answering that. I'm glad I got that cleared up finally. But with
Yeah, sure.
my wife, she's been a practicing witch for over 10 years now, and she's often asked if she's like a white witch, if she's a black witch, and she says, I'm neither. I'm both."
Yeah.
And they often ask her why. And I firmly stand by this as well. She says, we all have a dark side to us. Everybody has parts of ourselves we don't like and parts of ourselves we don't truly understand. Because if we were created to be all loving and all feeling, then we wouldn't feel emotions like anger, rage, pain, lust. We all have these emotions in us. So,
Yeah,
so in a lot of religions and organized religions I've seen try to steer away from that. Whereas she always says to me, if you find something that works for you, instead of running from it, you have to understand it and you have to work with it. Like, do you kind of
exactly.
stand by that as well, Nico?
Yeah, I have. I believe in the concept called the Dharma. It's an Indian concept. There's the karma that you know of.
Yeah.
There's the Dharma. The Dharma is something that you were born to do, whether it be evil or good. They don't believe in evil or good in Indian religion. Just what you're supposed to do and
Right.
what keeps you balanced. If your Dharma is to be a brain surgeon, and then be a brain surgeon. And if your Dharma is to be a bank robber, be a bank robber. See what I mean? We see
Yeah.
what I mean? So there were times in my life where I tried to more or less have a normal life, right? And I just didn't feel well after a while. And I was faced with depression. I was faced with um really dark thoughts. And when I embraced who I was, and when I decided to use this energy that I have in me to create things, then I felt good again.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's about accepting who you are and using it the best you can. And for me, it's creation. Um, yeah, and for me, it's about accepting um, my my true essence,
Yeah.
which is by definition demonic. But instead of using it for distraction, and which is not only about destroying others but also destroying myself, I channel it through creativity.
Yeah, like your art as well.
Yeah, exactly. I
Yeah.
also publish books. I also write books. So um, maybe that's my dharma after all, creation. But it's not only benevolent gods which are creative. Kali, which is a powerful entity, is a destructive force, but it's also a creative force. So it's not. You can have both. You can destroy, create, and when you can do that both things, then you spiritually you enter another level. And this is why I find serial killer art so fascinating.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, because those guys have been killing for years and years and years, and then they are in prison and they create something. They create art. Some of them is quite shit. You have to be honest, but uh, but there's some there were some really good artists,
Yeah, that's what
serial
I've
killer
seen.
artists. There were a few like Danny Rowling, for example, the Gainesville Ripper. He was a brilliant artist, and he could have done that. He could have, he could have been a successful artist instead of being a serial killer.
Yeah.
So there's a few, and I think it's interesting when you master both, when you've been through both ends. Uh, the worst you can do in life is stagnation, and join the what I call the gray forces. great forces is to live an uneventful life, doing nothing except breathing. Yeah, that's the great forces.
Yeah, well, just like I spent so many years right up until I was maybe 20, 21, 22, and I'm nearly 25 now. And like spent so much of school, like I was always picked on because I was the only boy with long hair, and I used to dye my hair different colors, or I had a mohawk. I listened to the wrong type of music. So I love listening to heavy metal. I love my heavy metal. So that could be from like Rammstein to new metal like Korn, all of that kind of stuff, Down, all that sort of stuff. And
Cool.
I was interested in stuff like tattoos and like piercings and so on. So I was always I always got comments and so on, and about my image, personality, the fact that I listened to the wrong type of music. I was into things that wasn't cool, like comic books, paranormal, all that stuff. And then it broke out into, well, I suppose this what kind of started an anxiety disorder as well as depression, self-harm. And now I'm at the stage where I'm perfectly comfortable with my own thoughts, and especially with spirituality. If anybody questions me, it's what makes me me. I'm happy with the way I am. If nobody's happy with me, then I don't give a shit. So
Exactly.
not my problem.
You have
If they
to
choose not to understand you, then that's their problem, not yours.
You have to boycott from your life everyone who is trying to turn you into another version of themselves.
Yeah.
You have to boycott those people because they're the toxic people.
Oh yeah.
They're the ones who knock on their door and try to convince you that the religion is better than yours, or what you do is wrong. And they're the ones to boycott, and that's what I do in life. I always stay away from people who try to turn me into another version of myself, because I don't need that in my life. Stay who you are. Yeah, that's the sacred rule to be happy. Yeah.
Yeah, would you say you're pretty like satisfied with where you are in life, considering what happened in your past and where you're at now in 2020? Like, especially like now, you have a partner. Would you say you're pretty satisfied with where you are?
Yeah. Of course, I'm totally in love with her, and life is good. Life is good to me, even if if there's always some people who will say, okay, this guy should have never been released. This guy should be rotting in prison now. But no. I turned my life around, and the French justice system has decided that I could be a free man now. So if you are not personally affected by what I did back in the 80s and the early 90s, you have absolutely no right to judge me. And this is painful to hear for some, because they always have some advice to give. But simply, no, you are not affected by what I did 25 years ago, so you have absolutely no right to judge me, and that's a fact.
For sure, yeah. Admittedly, I was so nervous just before this. I was saying to my wife, I was just like, oh no, because I didn't expect. I was saying to her, I didn't expect Nico to say yes. I thought he's not gonna say yes to this, but I'll just send him a message anyway. He said yes, and I was like, I have to do this now. Oh god. And I was like, oh god, I'm going to be so intimidated. But then now I talk to you, and you're actually quite different than what I thought you'd be. So, and actually feel like I've learned a lot as well. So, and
I'm always here for advice for people who, that over the years, there's so many kids who came to me and with all those dark thoughts in them, and they confess them to me, and asking me what would be the best to do, and I always tell them it's not worth it. Just try to find a channel, something that gets you out of your dark hole. But just don't. It's not worth hurting people. It's not worth doing that. It's not worth it. Just there's always another way to express what you have inside, because you know, at the end of the day, it's all about expressing feelings and emotions and stuff that you have deep inside. That some people, they only know a language, and it's violence. So and it's not the good way. Violence is never the best option. There's always another option.
Yeah.
And use your intelligence. If people do you wrong, there's always another way of fucking them up. Uh, you
Yeah,
know,
I'm sure.
it's a rabbi. I've, as incredible as it sounds, when I was released from jail, I worked for 13 years as a morgue attendant in a Catholic institute under another name and using fake papers. 13 years. Um, of course, after 13 years, somebody eventually recognized me and I was fired. But this experience taught me a lot, because I was seeing a lot of different representatives of religions, rabbis, imams, Catholic priests, etc. And I remember really well a rabbi who I used to talk with, and didn't know obviously who I was or etc. But we were talking about spirituality, and I don't know why we were talking about this after I think it was after one of those terrorist attacks in Paris where they shot kids in a Jewish school.
Oh yeah, yeah, I remember.
Yeah. So some guy shot kids, and he told me something that's really true. He told me that the best revenge is to live good, and it's in the Talmud actually. So yeah, in my perspective, the best revenge for me against all those people who want me to be in jail or for my crimes that I committed 25 years ago, my best revenge is to tell them in the eyes that I'm living good. I'm happy now, and I uh, I enjoy doing this art that I do, and getting the recognition for it. And it's the best revenge and it's the best thing I could tell anyone who
Yeah, well, like
feels
we,
like that they have to get even. All those school shooters, all those kids who feel like that they need blood. No, you don't need blood. You just need to find another way to express yourself and to live good and accept who you are.
yeah, well, yeah, I hear that, and just
Mm.
just try to live my life the way, like the best way I can to be like just more true to myself and to like the people I love, like my family, my
Yeah,
wife, and eventually, hopefully, be able to pass on like those lessons to maybe a child at some point in the future. I don't know, but
yeah,
whenever I've had friends coming to me, like if they have a person who's trying to bring them down, someone who's trying to make them feel bad about themselves, and they say, "Jack, what do?" I would say, "Do nothing. Carry on. Do
yeah,
nothing." And they say, "Why?"
yeah.
I say, "Because nothing pisses them off than you being happy and you carrying on with your life. Nothing
Exactly.
pisses them off more."
That's exactly what I was saying. That's perfect. Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, like Nico, thanks for that. And also, great thing. Do you have the Ouija board with you?
Oh yes, I have my latest version because I did a few. This one is really interesting. I did this for this Halloween, right?
Yeah.
And for the first time, I actually used DNA or objects that belong to each of those killers, because the Ouija boards that I do, they're serial killer themed. Each time I use different portraits on each corner. Well, this one, for example, is not really a serial killer; it's a cannibal. It's called
Ah,
Issei Sagawa.
oh, he's the one
Uh,
from Japan, isn't he?
yeah, exactly. So for him, I used bits of his hair that I incorporated inside the painting. Same with Charlie Manson. Charlie Manson here. I incorporated some fibers from his hair inside the
Is
painting.
is that Richard Ramirez in the other corner?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
Richard Ramirez, and I have a tie that he used to wear during one of his trials. So I used fibers from the tie. So that's an object that belonged to him. It's also incorporated inside the painting.
Yeah.
And last but
Is
not
that
least,
Kemper?
no, that's a guy called Gerard Schaefer.
Oh, I was gonna say,
Gerard,
just the mustache looked very
yeah,
similar.
he kind of looks like Camper from the side, but it's not Camper, it's Gerard Schaefer. He was one of the worst serial killers in Florida back in the 70s. He wrote a book called Killer Fiction, which I
Yeah.
highly recommend if you're into true crime, where he describes all his most of his crimes and most of his murders. It's a very intense book, and I have a ring that belonged to him, so I incorporated fragments from the ring inside the painting too. So yeah, soon I'm gonna get some parts of some fragments from Ted Bundy's car, the VW. So yeah,
Right.
for the next board, I might use that too because you know that he committed several murders inside that car. So yeah, it will be very charged in a spiritual point of view. So yeah, I'm gonna incorporate that in the next Ouija.
Well,
Ouija,
would you?
sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I saw that like you were on a another YouTube channel a few days ago.
yeah.
What's he called? Jake. Remember Jake something? I can't remember. Who bought one of your
Weber.
Ouija boards?
Yeah, Weber.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah,
And so I saw that he had quite a strange experience with, with saying that he got Rose from the Ouija board, which
yeah.
was the
That
daughter of Ted Bundy.
Ted Bundy, and the day he did this was her birthday.
Yeah, on
So
her birthday as well, which is
yeah, exactly. So he didn't know. He didn't even know. It's one of his fans who actually told him that it was Rose. It was Ted Bundy's daughter, and that it was actually her birthday. So yeah, it was interesting. I do believe, when you're talking about haunted objects, uh, I do believe in objects having a soul and getting some of the energy of the persons that they have belonged to. For example, the Richard Ramirez tie I used to wear when I was working in a morgue. So I got his energy, and
really
I
you
got
wore the
my
same
own
tie.
energy. Yeah,
Oh my
yeah,
god!
yeah. And there's my own energy in that tie. So I do believe that objects they get bits and pieces of their actual owners. So each object I get from different serial killers also get my energy in them. So all these objects are created mixing the two, mixing my energy and the energy of the person who I got the object from. They're really powerful. So it doesn't surprise me that he got this result. And I honestly think, it's not to brag or anything, but I honestly think that the Ouijas that I'm making now will be some of the most haunted objects ever. I truly believe that. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think I believe that. But like the because about haunted objects and objects having energy is that recently, I think it was about 2-3 weeks ago, I had some soil from Ed Gein's grave.
Cool. Excellent.
Yeah,
Yeah.
from
Perfect.
our mutual friend, Dark Memorabilia.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so had that. And I never believed in like spirit energy connecting to objects. Thought there's no way. And
Yeah.
then I did a spirit box session with this thing and it kind of blew my brain to pieces. And ever since this came into my house,
Yeah.
a lot of weird things have been happening in the house. A lot of activity in my
Doesn't
home.
surprise me. I
Huh?
remember a time I went to Sicily and I went to Aleister Crowley's a bay of Telema in Sicily. It's a place where I lived in the 1920s. It was the very first kind of hippie community before there were hippies. So he would practice all this black magic in the abbey. It was just a small house that they called an abbey. And I went there. There were still Aleister Crowley paintings on the walls. The place is abandoned, and it has been abandoned for years.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was bits and pieces. So I got, I got a few scraps of paint, brought them back to my place, and one of my friends came over, and he was looking at the vial, and suddenly his clock stopped. A perfect clock. Yeah. Then my ex-wife had weird dreams about Crowley following that. So yeah, I believe in this spiritual power linked to objects. Yeah, that's like 2 months ago I went to Armin Maiwe's house. Armin Maiwe's is the German cannibal who met his victim on the
Oh
internet.
yeah, Nico, do you recognize that?
Oh yeah, that comes to me. Yes, it does. So I went there. So I was the very first, because I also sell Murderabilia, and I also sell objects that belong to serial killers and paintings.
Yeah.
So I was actually the first, and I still am the first Murderabilia dealer who went there. So I brought like 2 suitcases full of stuff, and I brought this piece of red fabric that was in the second floor. And I found those incredible objects like the hook where he would suspend his victim from. It was still on the ceiling, in the ceiling.
Yeah.
And I went there a second time with a bigger vehicle, and this time I got the freezer, because it was still there. The police had brought back the freezer. So I can tell you that honestly, when I touched the freezer and opened it, and I felt this thing, it was like, yeah, I can tell you that those objects that
there's energy there for sure.
There's a huge amount of energy on that. And doing a black magic ritual using those objects, I intend to do that, and I think I will have amazing results. It's you see all those movies like The Conjuring and Annabelle and all this Hollywood crap.
Yeah,
and you're like,
I think
okay,
those kind of horror films, just like, because I've done the whole paranormal spirit communication stuff for a while now. Then now when I watch those, it's just for entertainment. It's nothing like it is for real.
Exactly. This is for real. I mean, those objects that you have behind you, and those objects that I have found there, they're for real. They're the real Annabelles. See what I mean?
Yeah,
exactly.
I can believe in spirit, like in energy of like being attached to objects, but I definitely do now. And ever since it was the first night I left my wife in the house alone with this, and she wanted to do a spell with it. And I said, yeah, sure, go ahead.
Yeah.
And she rang me when I was at work. She said, Jack, some weird stuff is happening in the house ever since. Some weird stuff's happening. Like, what do you mean? Like stuff's moving. I'm hearing banging. And a few nights ago, a few nights after she did a spell with this, we thought someone broke into our house, and we heard what sounded like footsteps running upstairs up to our bedroom, and the footsteps got outside of our bedroom door. And I was going to open the door and expect to see a burglar or something. Open up the door, nothing. So that was the first weird experience since this has been in my house.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah, so this is in the Armin Maivis house. That was kind of like serial killer documentaries. It's all I watch. So that's it. It's more, I'm interested in understanding them, find out what makes them tick, what makes their minds work. But with Armin Maivis, it was after seeing Is the house like? Does the house still look the way it did years ago?
It still does. You have to understand that Armin was a hoarder.
Oh
So
yeah,
the rooms are filled with piles and piles of crap
yeah,
of any sorts. Honestly, and it's been there for 19 years. The windows are ajar. So the wind comes inside, the rain comes inside. It's very humid. Part of the house was burned down because of urbexers, urbex kids, the kids who actually visit those abandoned places and they have some weird code around them. They basically think that those places belong to them because they're part of this urbex community. But some of them, they just squat there. They just stay there during the night, and they they um, they create fire hazards. So part of the house was burned down because of them. So this is one of the reasons why also I decided to save those unique items that were the cage, for example, that was in the slaughter room. I brought back the cage and the X-shaped cross where he would tie his victim, and the fridge and the freezer because they were. I mean, they would probably have been destroyed during the year because there are more and more kids going there. They have absolutely no respect for the place. They put tags on the wall. There were a few videos, rap videos that were shot in there. So they have absolutely no respect for that place, and all those objects which belong to crime museums or private collectors, they will end up being totally destroyed. So this is also one of the reasons why I decided to save those objects from destructions. Yeah.
yeah. Well, like there's I can't remember. Yeah, because I think I heard it from a mutual friend of ours. That the is the house going to be demolished soon? I
Yeah,
heard.
probably soon. Yeah. Armin will soon be released from jail, and he has absolutely no interest in having that house back. That house cannot be used in any way. It's a hazard. The some of the part of the roof is crumbling, so it's really dangerous. When I was on the last floors, I was really watching where I was walking because there were holes on the ground, and you could easily fall from two stores down. So yeah, no, it's really still dangerous. I would not recommend going there anymore because the neighbors are really careful about what's going on. They're fed up of all those kids coming and taking pictures.
Yeah,
But yeah, it probably will soon be demolished. Yeah.
yeah. So that's it's kind of one of the only places I've seen which is still standing. Apart from you got places like the Amityville
Yeah.
Horror House in New York,
Yeah.
and there's
You
a
have to
there's
go there to at least take a picture of yourself in front of the house because the house is magnificent. Plus, it's so, as you say, it's like going to Amityville and taking a shot, a selfie of yourself with the house behind you, even if it doesn't look the same anymore. But yeah, it's still a historical place when you're interested in the occult and true crime. The occult, because you might not know this, but one of Armin's neighbor was a very famous witch in Germany. She would cast death spells actually to people, and she was a close friend to Armin, so they would often go to each other's place. When I was at inside Armin's house, I was looking for occult books because it's probably something that was inside his house. But parts of the books, most of the books were already taken by other kids who had been there before. Yeah,
sorry. I'm just going to answer just this comment just very quickly, just because
yeah,
I'm sorry. I am seeing the comments, just obviously just in the
yeah. Sure.
conversation. Just wondering why you are focusing in on negative energy. Negative energy is the first thing people connect with in the paranormal. I'm just wondering what. I'm just wondering here. Well, it's kind of life after life. It's kind of more Sam. It's kind of more just understanding, like just more an understanding instead of kind of running away from. So it's more just understanding it rather than running away from it, if that makes sense. But with is there kind of any places which maybe where obviously there's the fascination with like with serial killers, like where like it's kind of a lot of people won't really understand with owning a sort of a piece of maybe their house, something they wore, maybe their hair. There's a lot of some people like find it quite cool. Other people find it very strange. Like my mother, she finds it just really weird. And I said, I can't really explain it. It's just something which you have to be kind of interested in. I'm more interested in finding out how their minds work, why they did the things they did. So I believe there's more, instead of sort of ridicule in a way, you get more from understanding about these people. Would you say that's kind of well, like where does the fascination come? Where did it come from for you with owning a piece of maybe Ted Bundy and such? Where does that come from?
For me, it's natural because it's something I've always been interested in when I was a kid. So, now that I can actually do this, and now that I actually have the network, because it's all about networks, to actually own this, I don't see why I wouldn't do it, because this is something I've always been interested in. You know, of course, this kind of stuff might seem weird for other people, but for me, it's really weird to collect. I don't know.
Teapots.
Soccer t-shirts, or I don't know. For me, it's as weird and alien to me that it could be for you guys to for. So it's all about perspective. For me, it's the natural thing to do, and it's the natural is the way I like to decorate my house, and it's also about the value of those items. What's interesting now is that you see an entire new generation of kids who are into true crime, and I find this extremely interesting. Maybe it's because of Netflix, because there was so many good documentaries on true crime recently on Netflix. You can give them that you can give it to them, whether it be Tiger King or the Ted Bundy tapes. So it created a new interest for many people, and many people are getting into true crime. And what is called serial killer culture. Serial killer culture, it's something that's quite recent. Is that it comes from pop culture, of course, but it's you have to consider that all those crimes, most of them, they happened like nearly 40, 30 years ago. So now they're part of pop culture. I mean, Pogo the Clown is a pop culture icon.
Yeah, it's part of history.
It's part of history. It's part of there's so many horror movies that are inspired by the Pogo figure, whether it be It or American Horror Story, or you see Pogos everywhere.
Oh yeah.
And exactly, Charles Manson is a huge part of the American pop culture. All those killers and all those serial killers that have been fascinating the public for so many years, people don't see the emotional aspect anymore. They just see the pop culture figure. Ted Bundy, okay, of course, there's still victims. There's still people who are emotionally moved by the case. But 90% of the people, they're not interested in the victims. They're interested in Ted Bundy himself. See what I mean?
Yeah.
So, owning those pieces is taking this hobby a little bit further, of course. But I think more and more people are getting it, and more people are understanding that it's part of history, it's part of culture. And owning a painting done by John Wayne Gacy is getting more and more accepted, socially accepted. And I strongly believe that John Wayne Gacy will be the next Picasso in 100 years. Who knows? You know, when art historians will look back, maybe they will think that, okay, this had value, this had meaning. The guy who painted this killed 34 boys. So the energy in that painting is amazing. And if we stay away from the emotional aspect of it, there's really a dark energy coming from those paintings.
Yeah, so yeah, like, as I just find it just super cool and interesting. Like when they say like, it's so weird you collect like Murderabilia, and I was like, I find it
Yeah,
weird you collect teapots, but there you go.
exactly.
So,
Yeah, exactly,
but with
exactly.
yeah, but with the kind of like art and so on, like pieces which they've owned. I mean, there's a museum in the States. I can't remember where the museum is, but it's got like O.J. Simpson's car on display, Ted
It's
Bundy's.
Alcatraz East. Alcatraz East. They also have the pogo outfits and several other interesting things. I'm trying to approach them to sell the freezer, by the way. So maybe you will see the freezer there or in another American museum. You never know.
Who
Yeah,
knows?
yeah.
All right. Just before like I let you go, I'm sorry if I've kept you here for a bit of a while, Nico.
Oh,
I
no worries.
apologize if you
Don't
have
don't.
more things to do
It's
later on.
lockdown here, so you know I don't have nothing
But then here we
much.
went into lockdown
Yeah.
today,
Wow. 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 Crazy
even though
times.
I'm mostly inside, so my life hasn't really changed all that much. So
Yeah.
there's just two more things which I just have to ask just before I let you go.
Yeah. Sure.
First of all, I've been tempted to get one for the last little while, and like my wife was like, "Why?" So it'd be something called upon the shelf, and people can ask about it. But where
Yeah.
does the inspiration for a bundildo? Where does that come from? I really want to know.
Well, last year I was talking with my girlfriend, and we were commenting all those groupies, Ted Bundy groupies, uh, and we were like, okay, what do they do when they watch Ted Bundy on TV?
Oh God.
So I came up with this idea, and she came up with this idea too. That okay, we could help them in a way by creating a toy specially designed for their pleasure. So this crazy idea took form, and I contacted one of my old friends who is also a special effects artist. He works for movies, etc. So I told him, okay, I wanna create a line of dildos based on serial killers, and he was like, this is the craziest and sickest idea I've ever heard, and it's brilliant. I said, of
Yeah.
course it's brilliant,
I've
and
also
so
seen the what is it, the most recent one, the Richard Ramirez one that you've
yeah,
done.
yeah. It's a nice object. It's in the shape of a crucifix, so it will appeal not only to true crime fans but also black metal fans and even Catholics. You never know. You know, some people who like really well who are in love with Jesus. That's another way to actually honor their belief system. But yeah, it's an object that will get us banned by the Vatican probably. But yeah, uh, so it's called the Night Reaper. Night Reaper, not the Night Stalker, the Night Reaper.
Oh my God.
Um,
So is it true you
and
could take off the little man on the?
yeah, exactly. You can take it out, and there's scales on it. So yeah, it's a nice object. Uh, do I have one here? Yeah, no. It's in my bedroom, so yeah, it's too bad. Otherwise, I would have shown you. But yeah, if it's in my bedroom, it doesn't mean that I use it. But
You sure?
yeah.
Actually, don't answer that. Don't answer that.
But yeah, you can
Actually,
remove.
have you ever had
You
any reviews of people who have used them?
Oh yes, oh yes. I had a few sex workers who actually bought the Bundyldos,
Yeah.
and some of them used used the Bundyldo on their clients, uh, which it wasn't meant to be used that way, but obviously you can also use it that way. So
I wonder
Interesting.
how that conversation went. Honey, I got a request. Can I ask you something?
Yeah, exactly. Plus, it
Yeah,
was
imagine
not
explaining
special.
that.
Yeah, exactly. But I have a new toy coming soon. I'm working on a Pogo butt plug. So yeah, that will do the trick, I guess. That will do the trick.
Yeah, it gives a whole new meaning to the word pogo.
Exactly. Perfect.
Just the one last thing.
Yeah.
We've been talking about spirituality and so on over this last little while. Do any of your tattoos have any sort of signature meaning, like to you, in that sense?
Oh yeah, I have seals. Seals. Can you see them on my arm there? I don't know if you can see them clearly
I've seen
or
it on
not.
your Instagram before.
Yeah, okay. It's seals. They're taken from the Lemegeton, the lesser keys of Solomon the King. And each seal represents a demon. One is associated with art, and the other is associated with bloodshed. So it's two elements of my soul, actually. Those seals are protecting me and are helping me channel those negative energies. I also have a lot of demons tattooed around the. So yeah, I have quite a lot of occult stuff. I also have murderabilia related stuff. I have a pogo on my calf.
Oh, no way.
Pogo, not pogo, sorry, skull clown that was designed by John Wayne Gacy. It's one of his most famous paintings on my calf. I have a BTK symbol on my ankle. The one he used to draw on his letters. So yeah, I have many different influences in my tattoos. Yeah.
Well, I'm just starting on just this sleeve, which is going to be more kind of grim and dark. Whereas I got the black arm, which it's not done yet. It's going to go right the way up to here. So I've got the wolves there, skull here.
Oh, nice.
Because I'm interested in like fossils and dinosaurs, that kind of stuff.
Oh, cool.
So that's why that's there.
Yeah.
This one, just starting on. This little gap, which I have here, little ghost there as well. And with my tattoo artist, I was talking to him about different ideas for my left arm. And so what I'm getting done just here in this little space is a portrait of Ted Bundy, but as a devil with the horns, like blood coming from the mouth and so on.
Looking forward to seeing that.
Well, I'll be posting on my Instagram if you want to have a look. But
excellent.
It's going to be probably next month now. We're in lockdown for 4 weeks, so it's not going to happen at the moment. And then this most recent one, which is my skull.
Excellent.
And then planchette just there.
Oh yeah, planchette there. Perfect.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So then, so it's going to be kind of like zombies, any kind of dark imagery. I just love all that stuff.
Excellent.
So very last thing, just before I let you go. So with this talk that we've had today, which thank you so much for coming on. I'm sure I'll talk to you again at some point in the future,
thank you.
Like when we come off this. But what do you hope that if people can take away anything from this talk today, what do you want, what lessons do you want people to take away from this?
Absolutely nothing. No, I'm kidding.
Oh yeah, thanks, bye.
I'm kidding. No, yeah. Well, most important for me is to make people understand when they think that life is shit and that there's no way out except violence or whatever. There's only a way out, another way, and make your life different and be yourself, and don't let yourself influence by others. And you only live once, YOLO.
Exactly.
So, but yeah, and everything is possible. Look, I even wrote a cannibal cookbook that shows you that.
That was the question I forgot to ask you. Do you still have any of them?
Oh yeah. You can actually go to my Insta if people want to contact me, or my website. My website is www.nico www.serialpleasures.com. There's all my products in there, the Ouija, the Cannibal Cookbook. There's a few of my paintings, and there's many other different objects that I made, the serial killer dildos, serial killer condoms. They're great conversation starters if you go to a pub or just show your serial killer condom and yeah.
Because I was having a joke with my wife. I said like, I really want to buy an Eileen Warren-Us condom, and she said why? and I said why? Because if I give it to somebody who said, hey babe, do you have protection? Do I? Do I ever? Well, Nico, I'm sure we'll have a talk after this.
Yes, we will.
Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for inviting me, Jack. It was a pleasure. And yeah, stay safe and stay busy during the confinement. That's the most important. Yeah.
Yep, I will do. Thank you so much, Nico. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Thanks.